Hello and a very warm welcome to our event today on the role of innovation in decarbonization. My name is Guntram Wolff and I'm pleased to host today the CEO of Eni, Claudio Descalzi. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
It's great to have you here and of course to talk with you about the role of innovation in the decarbonization process. Obviously it's a big topic. But before I start jumping into the questions, let me ask my audience, our audience, to participate. You have an opportunity to also ask questions and give us remarks through Slido. So you go on the website Slido and type the code decarbonisation, and then I'll see your comments and questions right away here in my feed on the tablet. So don't hesitate to join in the conversation, and I will pass on the questions to my guest. Mr. Descalzi, thank you so much for joining us today. And we wanted to talk about innovation and decarbonization. And of course, I guess the first question is, what is Eni doing in this space? I mean, how do you see this space? I mean, how important is innovation for decarbonization? What are the concrete projects that you think are the priority for your company, but what you think also should be a priority for, I would say, in general, for decarbonizing our systems?
Yeah, thank you. First of all, thank you for inviting me. I think that the energy system is very complex and is built up on a different kind of technology. So we have to look after the past because we have to decarbonize the past, and we cannot delete what we are now and built in the last 2 centuries. But we have to build the futures. So that is the transition. That is made by the 2 big companies, the future and the present and past. So the energy transition is a technological transition. So we need technology to change the past. Otherwise, there is no change. And that is made by different kind of sets of technologies. So it's a mix of solutions that we have to use. There is not just one solution, but all the possible solutions that are able or make us able to reduce the CO2 content have to be utilized. So I think from our point of view, our path started at the end of 2014, because it's not something that you can start overnight and you start your decarbonization. Already 7 years ago, we felt with the first oil crisis that lasts for several years until the COVID, that we needed to find new kind of directions. And Eni has a very strong technological profile. We improved that, increasing the R&D investment. So now we have more than 1,000 R&D people that work on new different kind of technologies. So we start working on the transformation of we can say the hard-to-abate activities. Our hard-to-abate activities are mainly our refineries and chemicals. So the refineries, we start transforming our refinery in biorefineries. That means that we invested in technology, and we thought to invest in proprietary technology, because it's not easy to buy existing technology for something that is in the future. It's something that must be, we can say, tailor-made on your kind of assets and on your geographies, on your configuration. So we work and we invest and we can say created a new technology, Ecofining, the name, to be able to transform the traditional refinery in a bio one, and a refinery that is able to treat a different kind of feedstock, because our aim also to create a technology that allow us to not use palm oil. that is in conflict with food, but also in conflict with the deforestation of the primary and secondary forest. So I think that was a very important challenge. We built two different refineries, one in Gela, and one in Venice first, and one in Genoa the second. Now we are building up on that, and we are treating now 1 million, more than 1 million ton, and we think to arrive to get 6 million ton. That was first step. The second step was on the circular economy. So the transformation of organic and inorganic waste materials. So organic waste material from the cities or urban waste, that is already existing, is a prototype. We have a prototype running for a couple of years. Now our issue is to treat for each hub 150,000 tons of waste material, and it's quite nice in terms of results because we can get first of all water, the distillated water, oil that we can use without sulfur for marine operations, and CO2 that we capture. So and then we have inorganic, so all the complex polymer that you cannot waste in different way, you cannot burn, or you cannot treat from a mechanical point of view. And that is very interesting because from the oxygenation, so gasification of this complex polymer called plasmids, you can get hydrogen. So we have project to give hydrogen from this product that already gave the CO2 content for our refineries. Then we have other kind of technologies, especially in the CCS, in the capture for hard to abate. So there is a set of technology. We invested about 5 billion euro for R&D and deployment.
So in some of our research, we looked at the need to invest in technology to not only decarbonize, but to decarbonize fast enough to reach the net zero goals that the world and Europe wants to reach by 2050. And what our research suggests is that we need to massively accelerate the rollout of new low carbon content technology in the coming years to actually be able to meet the 55% and then 55% goal, and then finally, of course, the 100% goal by 2050. And it turns out the acceleration is in an order of magnitude of, for Europe, at least a factor of 3, for the world, a factor of 6, right? So we have to get 6 times faster in decarbonizing our production, our output, than we are currently doing. Now, looking at this from your perspective as a company that is, of course, a major supplier still of, can I say, of fossil fuels, how do you look at this transition, let's say, more from a macro perspective? I mean, there's lots of political action happening now in this space. A lot of actors say they want to do something, they want to react, they want to move fast. But how do you see this? Will Europe manage to do it so fast? Are companies like you able to quickly enough, adapt to this new model? And perhaps you tell us a bit also how your business model as a result will change, because of course now a lot of your business is still with let's say traditional fossil fuel, and a lot of that will have to disappear rather early than late. So how do you see this speed of the transition, which is, I think, really unprecedented?
So as we said, we need investment and we need technologies, and then you must have a clear objectives and a business model. This kind of transition is we have to adapt a new business model, a new financial model. From our point of view, we took a very strong commitment 1 year ago about 2050. We started 3 years ago to prepare all the different activities, and we took a commitment to get the net zero by 2050, and we gave a trajectory with target at 2030, 2040 so our stakeholders are be able to follow up our improvement in this target. Clearly this target, as I said, new technology, but in this kind of target, I think that the scope 1 and 2 is the easier part to achieve, but the most important one is the scope 3. So from our point of view, how we can get that, our aim is to sell to our customers. We have about more than 10 million customers in terms of electricity and gas, and then we have a huge amount of customers in terms of mobility. So our aim is to be able to sell decarbonized products, to transform our production of today in decarbonized product for gas, biogas, electricity, clearly green electricity, and for mobility, biofuel, hydrogen, and electricity. So that is the only way, because if you want to reach the scope 3, you have to reach your customer with decarbonized products.
So biofuel, hydrogen will be the main, or how do you see the mix of the different energy transport fuels? I mean, which ones will dominate? I mean, there's a lot of hype now about green hydrogen. How do you see that?
I think that clearly electricity and green electricity is the first. I think that you have to so the first for the future, that you have to complement with the new advanced bioproducts, so like the hydrogenated vegetable oil, something that is completely decarbonized without sulfur, I mean, and without oxygen. So you need the advanced product and electricity. That is the first for mobility, because hydrogen will come. We really wait. We need time to have a green hydrogen. We are at low cost. We have 2 projects for our refinery in the south of Italy. The cost is still very heavy. And for mobility, with the hydrogen cell, we have to pass from electron to molecule and 2 times. So at the end of the day, if the efficiency with the green electricity is 70%, with the hydrogen can around between 30 and 40%. So we have to improve that. So I see as the first step, green electricity and bioproduct for the existing fleet.
Right. Of course, there are some that hope that green hydrogen will become cheaper very quickly, like such as your compatriot Marco Alvará, who I think has just made a big pitch here in Brussels, but elsewhere, arguing that green hydrogen will come very, very quickly. Perhaps in the next 10 years already will be a dominant.
I think that 10 years is a good period to have a good cost for hydrogen. We are working with them on that, also on transportation, and we are using hydrogen, in this case blue hydrogen, with the percentage up to 20% for our refinery in the south of Italy. So I think that hydrogen for the industry, I believe, hydrogen for electricity, and so with the transformation, I think is okay. But you are asking me about mobility. So hydrogen for mobility will arrive for sure, and in our service station, we are projecting now. We are going to build 2 hydrogen service station, fuel station in Italy. But I think that is a priority. I see green electricity and biofuel, and then hydrogen on the date you said. In 10 years, maybe we will be ready.
Mm-hmm. Now, another aspect that I think from your perspective is probably quite relevant is the question of the amount of energy that will be used in the future. And if you look at models such as the one by the European Commission on the decarbonization of our economies, one important aspect that they put forward is, well, there will have to be some energy saving, right? I mean, we will have to consume in some dimensions less energy and we might actually be able to do it because electric engines are more efficient than combustion engines, etc. So where do you see sort of demand for energy evolve in the next 10 years? I mean, do you think this will sort of, like in the past, just continue to rise quite in parallel to economic activity, or do you think there will be a certain decoupling also in the use of actual energy for the next decade?
I think that the need for energy is going to grow, also in a very mature area like Europe or the US. Clearly, we need a lot of energy in countries where we have the majority of people that don't have access to energy. That is the majority, because OECD countries represent 15% of the worldwide population, and we know that a growing population, especially in Asia and in Africa. But also for Europe, you know, when you think about cyber, or you think about IT, you think about all the new process, they need energy. You think about green hydrogen, you need energy. Also the decarbonisation need energy. So I think that we need clean energy. I think that the efficiency in all the processes have to reduce the amount of energy that we need to do the same things. I see very difficult, you know, that people that for decades got the habit to use energy everywhere at any time can things to reduce. I think that we have to adapt the technology to allow people to spend better in a more efficient way the energy. But I think that the energy need will grow.
One, I think, interesting conversation when looking at energy markets at the moment is, of course, the volatility in the prices of energy. Just discussed right before we started this event about the price of crude oil that has been very high recently, and actually collapsed the price, perhaps not collapsed, but fell very significantly on Friday when news broke on the Omicron variant of the coronavirus, COVID-19. And travel restrictions were imposed on Friday, and so there's lots of uncertainty about the future of, let's say, international travel. And today there's some recovery of the price. So this volatility, I mean, I guess I'd be interested in hearing from you about how do you see this price volatility in this strange COVID period that we are? How big of a headache is it for investors that need to, of course, also invest in infrastructure, but also in appliances in that space? Yeah, I mean, how do you see overall the price development in the crude markets? How much of a headache is it?
No, that is an issue, but we start facing this issue 8 years ago, and 2014 and 15 we had a big crisis, and it's practically 7 years that we are in the middle of this volatility, uncertainty. And after COVID, the uncertainty and volatility became even more important. Now we see the effect on the gas price, because we have two big components. One is volatility of the price of the market, but also that most of the company, especially in any case our company, we start to invest in a different kind of business, so in the transition, in different kind of activities. So there are less money for the upstream. But what happened that we are modifying the offer with the green hydrogen or blue hydrogen or biofuel, so different kind of investment where we have to invest a lot, but the demand is still there. Demand is still gas, demand is still also. That is a big gap. clearly it's not easy to invest, as you said. And also if the price is now 6-7 months, that is much higher than before, I don't see big investment in the upstream. I don't think that all the big oil and gas that are transforming themselves through new technology and new investment for low carbon activities will invest like before. The issue is how we can work on the demand, because that means work on all the infrastructures, the industrial process, the transformation of the raw material. So that is a big issue, so I think that the gas price may be not at this level, or the price of energy not at this level, is structural. After all this period, is structural components. Not that in few months we go back to the previous low price, and we have to work out for some solution.
So price volatility, we talked about price volatility, we talked about sort of innovation at the company level, and I guess what I would love to hear from you now is a bit more sort of on the policy side. I mean, what is it that you think policymakers need to prioritize at this stage to generate the necessary investments, but also the innovation, really? I mean, it's not just sort of the investment into physical infrastructure, but also innovation into hard to abate sectors where actually decarbonization solutions do not yet exist, or at least, or might exist, but are very expensive still. So there's a whole question about, is the policy framework right? And of course, the European institutions have put forward a Fit for 55 package with lots of descriptions and lots of initiatives, 3,000 pages of proposed legislation to decarbonize the European economy as quickly as possible. But from the point of view of a company like yours, what are the issues that you think policymakers need to prioritize so that the private as well as the public investments are actually being generated?
Yeah, first of all, I think we have to say that Europe is doing very well. Everything is relative. So if you consider what is doing the rest of the world, Europe is doing really very well, because we are pushing in terms of Europe to decarbonize our system. Unfortunately, we are not the only continent, and we represent just a few portion of the emissions. I think that there is a big debate what to do. We said before, the decarbonization is a mix of different kind of actions. For that reason, I think that we have to be diverse. We have to accept all the tools that can create and then allow us to decarbonize our past, because the issue is the past, because we have centuries of coal, of crude, then we have gas. That I think that is a good partners for the future, if we are able to attack in a very strong way the methane emissions. That is the only way. If we attack the methane emissions, the CO2 content of gas allow us to go for the future, and we capture the CO2 that eventually we produce at the end of all the processes. So I think we have to use different kind of tools. We cannot say just electrification, just renewables. We have to use, when we talk about hydrogen, it's perfect. When we talk about electricity, we have to ask ourselves, which kind of electricity? This electricity is coming from coal, it's coming from gas, it's coming from renewables. So that is good, because Europe is working now not on the volume, but on the content of the energy content, and also on the emission of each kind of product. Not easy, because it's not easy to find the agreement of everybody, but I think that they are moving toward the right direction, but they have to use all the tools.
So since you mentioned methane and carbon capture and storage, perhaps we can talk about this, because methane was, of course, also an important part of the COP26 discussions, and we know that methane is a very powerful greenhouse gas. I think it's the second most relevant greenhouse gas currently emitted, and it often appears in the context of natural gas extraction, but also transport. So a lot of commitment at the COP26 to reduce methane. Also, the US committed very strongly to do so. How do you see prospects of actually reducing methane emissions very quickly?
So first of all, I say it's crucial. If we want to continue to talk about gas, and we need to talk, looking at the price, we need to face this issue. I think that is possible. Clearly, that, as you said correctly, the transportation system, the valve, all the pipes are the main issue. We lose in the atmosphere every year about 100 billion cubic meter of methane. Is a huge amount that is causing about 2.4 gigaton of CO2 emissions, so the GHG emission, and that is okay. We hurt the environment, but we also, generally speaking, we lose a lot of money, and we don't use gas for the right aim. If we burn it, it's much less because there is flaring that everybody have to shut down, but the 150 billion cubic meter of flaring producing 450 million tons. So it's an order of magnitude less than the methane. So methane has really an issue. From our side, we start working on an early basis, I think an early time, because we wanted to save also money, and then the environment became, because we started a long time ago, we put a very drastic commitment starting from 2014. Our target that we communicate to the industry is to reduce 80% by 2025. Now in 2021, we reduce of 95%. We are very close to shut down. Now we are incorporating the new COP26 that say that from 2020 as a reference point, we have to reduce by 45% by 2030. So now we are incorporating, we are very close to do that. But clearly, in our case, Italy or the other country where we work as upstreamer is not a very methane. We are a lot methane fugitive, but the big network, gas network, is a very important point to face. I think that COP26 was very good in facing and giving. Also, that was outside the COP26, because I think it was just 100 countries that accepted that, but that is a relevant point.
So I will soon turn to questions, and let me recall to our audience, if you would like to ask a question, please go on Slido and type the code decarbonisation, and then you can ask a question that I can see directly here on my phone. But before I move to the questions, perhaps one last question from me on carbon capture and storage. And we talked about it also right before. I mean, that's the beauty of actually meeting really in the office, that you can actually chit-chat before the event and not just during the event. So I very much enjoyed discussing with you carbon capture and storage, which, according to all the ICCP models, has to be part of the overall solution to reach the net zero. That's why it's called net zero. It's called net zero because there will always be some emissions, and the idea is to offset them by carbon capture and storage or similar methods. Your company is also exploring that space, solutions for carbon capture and storage. So can you tell us perhaps how this works? What are the technological solutions that you employ? What are the kind of capacities that you think can be used? and how much can you offset of, let's say, I mean, if you relate what you can offset to sort of not what you emit, but what you distribute in terms of fossil fuel. I mean, just to get the proportions, I think that would be also quite interesting.
So, first of all, I think that CCS, especially for the hard to abate, for the past, for our history, is important because we need to capture the CO2, and also in a lot of industrial process like cement or steel or ammonia, we need it. So there are different kind of CCS. Our CCS is in depleted reservoir. So the past fields, especially gas field, that now are almost finished. So they are the best field to become storage facilities. First of all, because we already do that with the methane, because we storage methane in this for energy security or also from a commercial point of view, and then we reproduce again. We can use the same pipe, the same platform, the same compressors in a reverse flow. So it is affordable from an economic point of view, especially now. We have existing projects in UK. There are different kind of existing project. We are storing CO2 with Equinor in Norway for about 10 years. Then there are other not our projects in the US. So we have projects, but especially in this kind of situation, depleted reservoir. Then there are other kind of in aquifer, but it's too expensive and not easy to apply. But then we have a lot of field depleted. So
that's the storage, but do you
capture
the storage
it also? Yeah. Normally, for example, in the consortium INET of energy industry consumers, they take care about the capture. We take care about the transportation and storage. On our facility, we take care about the capture, so the separation at the chimney normally. We use a different kind, but we use a technology with amine that stripping the CO2, that capture the CO2, that is energy consumer. So we are studying new kind of technology. Then there is the transportation, no problem, and the injection and storage. So the question cost, the cost I think is very important. So our average cost in Liverpool Bay, in Italy is even less, is about between 16 and 17, 18 dollar per ton. Sorry, euro in this case for ton. For the transportation and the storage, for the transportation and the storage, because we are using existing field, we have just to go river in reverse flow, and we have to recomplete the wells from producer to injector. Then we have the capture, and the capture can range between 38 to 48 or 50, something like that. So we are in a break-even price that can range between $55, $65. That just 1 year ago was too much and needs some incentives. But now, with at least in Europe, with a carbon tax of 77 and $70 euro per ton of a carbon tax, is absolutely in line.
Oh, this is amazing. So basically, the cost of $60 or $70, that's where we are already. Meaning, it is becoming actually, I mean, economically a part of the solution.
Yes, it depends. I said, if you're using your existing reservoir, if you have to develop a complete new reservoir, inject the high pressure in the aquifer, the costs are much more important.
So we are starting to see some questions. So let me start with a question by my colleague Simone Tagliapietra. He's asking, while the global north focuses on climate action, the global south also needs to cope with the problem of energy access. How can this twin challenge be tackled?
That is a very interesting question. I think that the COP26 is a very clear example that we have to consider rules and engagement and commitment for the North and different kind of commitment for the South, because the South is suffering still in sub-Saharan Africa, for example, but not there, just there, of a access to energy. So I think that in the North, our emissions are very high. So we have to immediately to take care, invest. We cannot ask the same to the South of the world. We have to, I think we have to help them, what we are helping them, to change the energy mix. They use a lot of coal as well, they use a lot of biomass, and that creating big problem, not big emission in terms of continent, because Africa is just 3% of the overall emission, but creating that, they create the problem to the health of the people. So the energy mix for this country is clearly, they have gas is welcome, and they have sun, so the renewable, where it's possible. In the primary forest is not possible, but in the other, yes. So I think that we have to give the opportunity to have a different kind of transition. We have to, as you said, go through a fast transition with all the possible technology we have, but for Africa or Asia, we have to help them to go to a slower transition, also because they are not, their emissions are very low. So I have to admit that there is not a problem, but they have possibility to change the energy mix, and we have to invest and help them to do that.
So now we have a question from a person anonymous about the funding of fossil fuel companies and the role of hedge funds that, according to that person, are moving away, and here the Guardian apparently had an article, that's what the person here says, that says there's a crack on fossil fuel hedge funds. By at the latest 2035, they need to shift rather rapidly to invest out of fossil fuel. And if I can say so, there's also, of course, even at the central banking level, there is now the big discussion about changing the portfolio of the central bank's asset purchases in the direction away from fossil fuel companies towards less emitting companies. So the question is there a risk for Eni?
A risk for Eni is a risk for everybody, and for that reason also we took a commitment for 2050 and then 2040 and 2030. We took a real commitment, and we started a different way of diversification in our business. You can call it transformation, to be able to be effective not just on the scope 1 and 2, on the scope 3. And recently we announced the listing of a new company. The name is Plenitude. That is our Eni Gas Luce, but we put together all the renewables and all the customers together and the EV charging points together, so 3 different activity, but toward the decarbonization, to decarbonize our client. So you must be able, if you want still to have the same number of investors, to really have all the KPIs for ESG that make your company sustainable in the future as an energy company due to the transformation. Clearly, is important. It's important because we have technology, we have money to invest, at least now, because the price a little bit higher, because the game is to take money from the upstream and invest in the transition and demonstrate that you are not losing money, because that is important, because hedge fund move very fast also because in the last 7 years the price was very low. So all the oil and gas system creates much less money than before. So it's not just a issue of ESG, for us is an issue of ESG, but also because the industry overall create less free cash flow than before, so the dividend distribution was different. But I think that we have to be credible, show the results, and be able to demonstrate that our transformation is sustainable also from an economic point of view.
So we have two last questions. One by Beatrice, asking you about possibilities from renewable sources. I suppose what she means, but I'm only interpreting now, is how much of your activities will come from renewable energy sources in the next 10 years, let's say, compared to where it is now. And the other question, and perhaps we can group those two, is whether you as Eni will be manufacturing synthetic hydrocarbons. Very specific question.
Very specific one. For the first question, we are going to grow very rapidly. We, as I say, want to join renewables and bioproducts for mobility and renewables for our client customers. Unfortunately, we have a huge number of customers, so that is quite different for a normal oil and gas company. And now we are, at the end of this year, we have 2 gigawatts of just renewable. So that means wind and solar. And in production, 2 gigawatts in production and installed and in development. By 2025, we are going to have 6 gigawatts and more than 15 by 2030. Then we have to grow because we want to cover completely all our customers that are going to increase with renewable, just renewable energy. So that is the offer of the new company. And then we have all the new product. Clearly, we are selling a lot of energy, so we have also gas, and gas has to be transformed in biogas from agriculture. So biogas and biomethane, that is a transformation. So we have to replace the gas that we sell now to our customers, that is more than 7 billion. Gradually, first is electricity, but gradually we have to replace also the gas with biomethane. The first billion by 2030, and then gradually by 2040, the company will be this new company will be completely decarbonized. Then we have the mobility, and then we have a new set of products that will be decarbonized. So it's not just renewable, but for the question is this one. The second question is very specific. We are not producing synthetic at the moment. Clearly, in the sense, we are producing different kind of product. So bioproduct, biogasoline, something is not coming from hydrocarbon, but it's coming from waste material, and as I say, organic or not organic waste material, and agriculture not in conflict with the deforestation or with food.
So if you allow me, we just got one last question, and then I want to conclude by a person called Andrea Costantino, and he's asking, why is Eni not working in the sector of rare earth element? It will be a key sector for a chip, for chips, rare earth. So it will be a key sector for chip production as well as the renewable energy sector.
No, we are not in rare earth also because we are not in mining.
Right.
That is a real issue. It's not easy. It's not easy. You need a lot of energy for mining, especially for these kind of minerals. Not just also cobalt. Is just in few parts of the world. You need energy, a lot of energy. You consume a lot of energy for diving and to get these minerals. And that is practically there is a monopoly. There are just 1 or 2 countries that get all this mining activity. So, but it's not in our scope of work.
Okay, wonderful, Claudio Descalzi. Thank you so much for joining us today here at this fireside chat here at Bruegel at our headquarters. It's a pleasure to welcome you here and to have you also in person here and not just on a little Zoom call. So it really makes a difference. The conversation gets much more lively and more interesting. So thank you also to our audience for actively participating. And I guess the topic will continue to be with us, I'm sure, and I'm sure there will be further occasions to interact in the future. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you very much for inviting me.